The next time you're standing in front of the egg shelf, staring at a wall of nearly identical cartons, remember this. The word homestyle or farm fresh printed across the front guarantees absolutely nothing. Not the diet of the hen, not how she was housed, not how long that egg has actually been sitting in a warehouse before it reached the store. That phrase isn't regulated by any law, which means literally any producer, no matter how industrial their operation actually is, can print it on a carton and nobody is going to stop them. There are 15 of the most popular egg brands out there, the kind almost all of us have grabbed off the shelf without a second glance, tossed in the cart, and never thought about again. 10 of them, honestly, you should avoid. The other 5 are the ones actually worth paying for, and the gap between those two groups is bigger than most people realize. The problem is almost nobody looks past the price tag and the pretty picture of a hen standing in a sunlit field on the box. People buy out of habit, out of brand recognition, out of packaging that simply looks clean and trustworthy. And so they end up eating something they would never choose for themselves if they actually understood what was hiding behind that label. This isn't about scaring you away from eggs. Eggs are one of the most efficient, nutrient-dense foods on the planet. This is about making sure the money you're already spending on them is actually buying you what you think it's buying you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which brands to avoid, which ones to grab without a second thought, and why the brand sitting at number 1 manages to beat out 2 rivals that both cost more money than it does. Stick around to the end, because that number 1 spot might completely change the way you shop for eggs from now on. We're starting with number 15, dead last on the entire list, grain and feather. You'll usually find this one running somewhere between 50 and 60 cents a dozen at discount stores, dollar stores, and the kind of open-air markets that pop up in parking lots on weekends. Now, the problem here isn't really the rock-bottom price. Cheap doesn't automatically mean bad. The real problem is that the carton frequently doesn't carry a clear date stamp or grade marking at all, and by regulation, every single egg sold is supposed to carry a stamp identifying it as either extra fresh, meaning it's within roughly 7 days of being laid, or table grade, which is allowed to sit on a shelf considerably longer before it's pulled. When that stamp is smudged, missing, or printed so small you'd need a magnifying glass to find it, you genuinely have no way of knowing how long that egg has actually been sitting in a truck, a warehouse, or a stockroom before it landed in your cart. And here's where it gets worse. Add in the fact that grain and feather cartons are frequently displayed on an open, unrefrigerated counter instead of inside a proper cold case, and you've got eggs that could easily be a lot older and a lot riskier than they appear. Room temperature is exactly the kind of environment that lets any bacteria present on the shell multiply faster than it would in a properly chilled case. It's cheap, sure, but that combination of unclear dating and improper storage is exactly why grain and feather lands at the very bottom of this list. Number 14, home country. The price climbs just a little here, sitting around 80 cents a dozen, and you'll typically find it at chain discount stores rather than independent markets. On the surface, that already sounds like a step up, but flip the carton over and you'll run into a different kind of problem. The weight grade printed on the front frequently doesn't match what's actually inside. Smaller eggs, the kind that should technically be sold in a lower, cheaper weight category, get packaged and sold as though they belong in a larger, pricier grade. It's a subtle thing, easy to miss if you're not actually weighing your eggs at home, but it means you are quietly paying for a size category you are not physically getting delivered to your kitchen. It's not dangerous the way stale, improperly stored eggs can be, but it's a quiet little tax on your trust, and once you notice it, it's hard to unsee. Number 13, Little Hen Plus. This one runs about 90 cents a dozen, a touch pricier still, and it markets itself with confident, bold text about freshness right on the front panel. The issue is that Little Hen Plus has a habit of using an outdated extra fresh stamp even after the real 7-day freshness window has already come and gone. By regulation, once that window closes, the eggs are supposed to be relabeled and shifted into the table grade category. But that relabeling process doesn't always happen on schedule, whether from a rushed production line, a printing backlog, or simple carelessness, and the result is a carton confidently telling you it's extra fresh when it technically no longer qualifies. Number 12, Morning Dawn. Roughly 95 cents a dozen, and this is where the housing question starts becoming a real sticking point. Nowhere on this carton will you find any disclosure about how the hens are actually kept. Not caged, not cage-free, not free-range, nothing. That silence is itself a signal worth paying attention to. On top of that, shells from this brand frequently arrive with faint hairline cracks, the kind you might not even notice at a glance, caused by careless handling and transport without the kind of cushioned packaging that protects shells during shipping. And a cracked shell isn't just an aesthetic issue. It is, quite literally, an open door for bacteria sitting on the outside of the shell to make their way into the egg itself, turning what looks like a completely normal carton into a meaningfully higher risk purchase. Number 11, White Harvest. These are imported eggs, priced around $1.10 a dozen, and imported eggs bring their own unique set of concerns. There is no clear, published information here about the cold chain, meaning the unbroken run of refrigeration that's supposed to follow an egg from the farm all the way to your local store shelf. Long transport routes, especially international ones, without consistent refrigeration at every single step, are exactly the conditions that let bacteria like salmonella multiply inside a shell that looks completely fine on the outside. You genuinely cannot tell just by looking at it. This is a case where the price might seem reasonable, but the invisible supply chain behind it is the real deciding factor, and White Harvest simply doesn't give you enough information to feel confident about it. Number 10, Little Homestead. And this is the one worth slowing down for, because there's a mix-up buried inside this entry that you'll want to hold on to for the rest of the video, the same way you'd remember a plot twist that pays off later. The carton says farm fresh eggs in large, warm, rustic lettering, complete with an illustration of a red barn, a wooden fence, and a proud rooster standing in the morning light. It sounds solid. It sounds like exactly the kind of wholesome, small-scale operation you'd want to support, and it runs about $1.30, a price that feels justified by all that imagery. But here's the truth. Farm fresh is purely a marketing phrase. It carries zero legal weight. It isn't certified, it isn't inspected, and nobody audits whether it's accurate before it goes to print. Legally speaking, the hen that laid that egg could have spent her entire life inside a standard, cramped battery cage in a massive industrial facility that looks nothing like that illustration on the box. Hold on to that phrase, farm fresh, because it is going to resurface later in this video, sitting right next to a completely different term, one that actually is backed by real verification and real consequences if a company gets it wrong. Number 9, Clear Field Farms, around $1.40 a dozen. To its credit, the grade printed on this carton is accurate, and the freshness dating checks out when you actually look for it. But the housing situation here is standard caged production, full stop, with absolutely no discount reflecting that in the price. You are essentially paying almost as much as you would for a more humane setup while receiving the standard, industrial cage arrangement underneath the label. It's not dishonest exactly, since nothing on the packaging explicitly claims otherwise, but the pricing simply doesn't line up with what you're actually getting. Number 8, Sunny Yard. Roughly $1.50 a dozen, and this is about as perfectly, forgettably average as a carton of eggs can get. There's no obvious violation here, nothing that would make you want to put it back on the shelf in a hurry. But there's also nothing whatsoever that sets it apart from a dozen other virtually identical chain store brands sitting right next to it at a similar price point. It's the culinary equivalent of white noise. Perfectly fine, completely unremarkable, and not worth actively seeking out when better options exist just a few feet away. Number 7, Farmhouse. Around $1.60 a dozen. And up to this point in the countdown, this is genuinely the best of the entire avoid group, close enough to the worth it category that reasonable people could argue about where exactly it belongs. The grade matches what's printed, the freshness dating checks out properly, and there's no obvious red flag jumping off the carton. But the housing conditions still aren't disclosed anywhere on the packaging, and the brand name itself, Farmhouse, is clearly, deliberately chosen to evoke a small family operation, even though this is standard industrial production running at massive scale. It's right on the edge. Close, but not quite close enough to cross over into the group you should actually be buying. And that's all 10 brands you should seriously think about avoiding. Everything from the genuinely questionable Grain and Feather sitting at rock bottom, all the way up to the nearly there Farmhouse hovering right at the border. If you're still watching, and you're finding this actually useful, do me a favor and drop the word shell in the comments below, just so I know you made it this far into the video. And if you haven't hit subscribe yet, I would genuinely appreciate it, along with tapping that notification bell so you don't miss whatever we dig into next. Your support, every subscription, every comment, every like, is what allows this channel to keep pulling back the curtain on what's actually sitting in your fridge. Now let's move into the 5 brands that are genuinely, honestly worth spending your money on. Number 5, Natural Gift. Running around $1.70 a dozen, this one carries a consistent grade 1 rating and delivers reliable quality batch after batch after batch, without the kind of inconsistency that plagues some of the brands further down this list. There's nothing flashy here, no dramatic backstory, no rare certification to brag about. What you get instead is a completely honest, dependable, predictable brand that doesn't have a single legitimate complaint attached to it. Sometimes boring and reliable is exactly what you want from a carton of eggs, and Natural Gift delivers precisely that. Number 4, Eco Farmer. around $1.90 a dozen. And this is where things start getting genuinely interesting, because this brand carries real, verifiable organic certification. Not just the word organic slapped across the front of the box for marketing purposes, but an actual certificate number printed on the packaging that you can independently look up in a public regulatory registry. Very few shoppers ever bother chasing down brands like this, mostly because most people don't even realize that certification numbers can be verified in the first place. It takes maybe 30 seconds on your phone in the store aisle, and it turns a leap of faith into an actual confirmed fact. Number 3. Clean Nest. Around $2.20 a dozen, making it one of the priciest brands on this entire list. The hens here genuinely have access to the outdoors, not just on paper but in practice, and the shells consistently arrive spotless, without a single crack in the batch after batch. The overall quality here is honestly undeniable. But so is the price tag, and that combination is exactly what keeps it from claiming the very top spot. Because, as we're about to see, there's a smarter way to get comparable quality without paying quite this much. Number 2, Bright Country. And here's where that phrase we asked you to hold on to finally comes back around and pays off. Remember Farm Fresh, printed across Little Homestead with the rooster and the red barn? Now set that next to the real term, the one that actually carries legal weight, free-range certified. That's not a warm, fuzzy marketing phrase. It's a verifiable status, backed by independent third-party audits that physically confirm the hens have genuine outdoor access for a defined portion of each day, with real consequences for the producer if that claim turns out to be false. Bright Country runs about $2.40 a dozen and actually backs that certified status up with documentation you can request or look up. It's pricier than most of the list, sure, but for the first time in this countdown, that price tag is attached to something you can independently confirm rather than just a picture on a box. We've made it all the way to number 1. If Clean Nest represents raw quality and Bright Country represents honest, verifiable labeling, then what could possibly beat both of them at once? The answer might genuinely surprise you. Number 1, Home Harvest. Of every single option sitting on that shelf, nothing delivers a better balance of price and quality than this one. And here's the most interesting part, the actual biggest surprise of this whole video. Home Harvest runs about $2 a dozen, which means it costs less, not more, than both of the rivals ranked directly above it on this list. And yet, that free-range certified status is backed by the exact same independent third-party audit standard as Bright Country. The shells consistently arrive without a single crack, batch after batch, matching Clean Nest on that front. And the grade holds perfectly steady across purchase after purchase, with none of the inconsistency issues that plagued several brands lower down this list. There's no hidden premium here for a prettier label, no extra charge for a rarer certification, no markup, just because the packaging looks a little more expensive. Just genuinely honest production, verified by an independent auditor, sold at a price that doesn't punish you for choosing it. That's exactly why Home Harvest claims the top spot on this entire list. Not because it's the most expensive carton on the shelf, and it very deliberately is not, but because among the handful of options that are actually genuinely good, this is the one that delivers the most value for every single dollar you hand over. And that's the answer to the question we opened this video with. The priciest carton on the shelf is not automatically the safest one, and the safest one is not automatically the priciest. We've made it through the entire list now, from the genuinely questionable Grain and Feather, sitting at the very bottom, all the way up to Home Harvest, reigning at the top. If there's one single lesson worth carrying with you out of this video, it's this. Don't trust the illustration of a rooster standing in a golden field, and don't trust the words Farm Fresh printed anywhere on that carton, because legally speaking, that phrase means absolutely nothing at all. But the phrase free-range certified means a tremendous amount, because there's an entire system of real, independent verification standing behind those two words. Shopping for eggs the smart way was never about grabbing the most expensive carton on the shelf, and it was never about trusting whichever box happens to have the nicest looking design. It's about knowing exactly what's actually standing behind that label before you ever put it in your cart. Now I genuinely want to hear from you. Which brand on this list surprised you the most? Had you already heard that Farm Fresh doesn't actually guarantee anything at all? Drop a comment down below. I read every single one, and I'm honestly curious to know. If this video helped, you look at the egg aisle a little differently, and you walk in next time shopping with a bit more confidence and a sharper eye, go ahead and subscribe, because there are plenty more deep dives just like this one still coming. There is still a remarkable amount hiding in plain sight on supermarket shelves, quietly waiting for someone to actually flip the carton over and take a closer look.